Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to J&A Talk. We're your hosts, Jurassic John and Ann, and today we're going to be talking about a YouTuber by the name of Jimmy Dore.
All right, yeah, he's a pretty popular YouTuber, obviously. If you're on our channel, you probably are well aware of him. He's been on YouTube for a pretty long time. He started his own channel back in 2011. He was, of course, on TYT's network for, I think, a pretty decent amount of time before he went on his own. He has almost 900,000 subs, so he's a pretty big deal on the online left and stuff like that.
But he's also a rather contentious YouTuber. It kind of goes back to this ongoing feud between what I like to call the pragmatic versus the populist left. I don't mean anything negative about those terms, but Jimmy Dore is kind of on the more populist side. And because of the very vicious disagreements between those two sides, he gets a lot of hate, especially for being like probably the biggest and loudest member of it. We're going to talk about a few of the things he's controversial for, and like we did with David Pakman, we're going to decide whether or not he's co-opted or comrade. Now let's begin.
All right, which one do you want to hit first? I guess the main big thing, other than Force to Vote, which we'll get into later, is like he's a pretty loud critic of Democratic members of, or Democratic Party members and stuff like that. He, of course, gets on Bernie, AOC, whoever, like...
The squad.
Yeah, basically whoever is his target, I guess, of the week, if you want to dive more into that.
Yeah, he's... not always undeservingly, but he goes pretty vicious on some of these characters, going as far as to call them corrupt. He does differentiate the type of corruption between like them and like Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, but I think that I can see some of the disagreements, why some people may get on to him about it, because he does kind of go a little heavy on these progressive Congress people, the squad and Bernie and such. I think that I do agree with a lot of his criticisms, but I don't think it's completely deserved. I think that he may be a little too harsh, and I think he goes at them even harder than he does a lot of the Democrats, and especially the Republicans. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's like the main beef people have with him. It's like, but I can understand it, I guess. Like, there's no real point saying that Mitch McConnell is a bad person, because you're very well aware he's been in office since the 80s. He hasn't, well, he's gotten worse over the years, but he's still been bad most of it and stuff like that. So I think the main issue is that when you have someone like an AOC or any squad member or like Bernie and stuff like that, whenever they do profess like these very progressive values and stuff like that, and then you kind of see them waffle and stuff like that, it's very, I can understand where the angst, I guess, and like feeling of like, what would you say, like being backstabbed?
That frustration.
Yeah, that frustration, stuff like that definitely is shown a lot. And I guess I can understand the critics being like, you got to get on Republicans more because they are more of a antithesis or
antithesis?
Yeah, antithesis. I didn't say it right. To the goals of progressivism, but you also have people who are supposedly on your left who are siding sometimes more with like the evil instead of like professing and going on with the progressive values and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll say this. He did an interview on Joe Rogan, I think his most recent one, and I understand his position a bit better now. I used to be a lot more harsh at criticizing him about how he attacks a lot of members of the left. But what he said is that the reason it goes so hard on them is because these are the people that we've elected. These are the people that actually speak directly at us, progressives. They profess progressive values. They are supposed to be on our side, and that's why he's a little heavier on them. Again, I think I can partially see why they don't really like him very much on this, but at the same time, I don't think it's 100% fair, but I can definitely see why, because I don't, like, Bernie Sanders has done so many incredible things for the left over the last 30, but he's really pushed forward like he's softened what the word socialist means. He's made it less of a nasty word. Medicare for all and free college and a higher minimum wage are a much more talked about talking point now. He really helped shift the Overton window to the left. And while I understand he's not he probably does have some disagreements with Jimmy Dore on policy. I don't think that, and some of the other members too. I can't really speak as strongly towards like some of the squad. They haven't been in long enough for me to really like say if they're going to be these true progressives or not. But I think they've done some good too. That being said, yeah, I have my own disagreements with him. I just wish he would kind of be a little bit. I wouldn't say be soft on them, but I would say I think calling them corrupt is very harsh, and while I understand his frustration, I honestly think that may just be going a little bit too far. The same with some of the other progressive YouTubers. He's gone pretty hard against like a lot of the TYT crowd. I have my separate criticisms. Might make a video like this on some TYT members in the future, but just talking about like Jank and Nana, some of these people, like they're just as bad as MSNBC. I don't really agree with that either. What do you think?
My thing with Dore is that I side more with his aggressiveness towards left-leaning people, because like I feel like his audience, I guess in his mind, his audience is just lefty people. So like everyone already hates Trump and Connell, whatever, and stuff like that. And I think like there's really no, at least in my opinion, it's like there's no reason to waste time and breath like attacking the enemy, because they're the enemy, you know, the Democratic Party and shit like that will already say that Mitch McConnell is a devil and stuff like that. So that's already a granted. I think I agree more of his tactic, because it's just like these are left-leaning people donating millions of dollars to them to like become political leaders, to get them in office and stuff like that. And when you see them like kind of rub elbows or like try to play nice with the establishment, it's kind of hurtful. And if coming from like a left perspective, it's just, I think that's an effective approach, because you're not going to get anyone to change who they are. And like if they're allegedly, you know, where they put it in there by the people and they can be taken out by the people. So I think we need to keep constant pressure. You can't let anyone in office get comfortable, even though, you know, we love Bernie and stuff like that. If he does some fuck shit, you gotta put some pressure on him for that. If AOC does something, and she does a lot sometimes. So I think I agree more with his approach instead of like, I don't know, I wouldn't say I agree with the softening. I think he's doing pretty well. We need more aggressive voices on the left. There's too many, you know.
It's kind of soft. It's kind of
there's a lot of softies going on. I think we need a lot of aggression. I think it's a dual pronged approach. I think isn't really terrible on either side. Both have their drawbacks, but I think they're both very needed within the party and the movement and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think in terms of how he talks about progressives, I think that it would be a bit, because we do need at the end of the day coalition build with these people like they do. Like I kind of stand in the middle of both, but I think that if we're going to build a strong left movement in this country, we're going to have to learn to coalition build a bit better. I'll harp more on it later in the video, but I just think the way he does talk, saying they're corrupt or sellouts or McCarthyites or whatever, like now not to be fair, some of them have stated some things, and there were some smears that gone around that are pretty bad. I think they're just really bad, but I will say that I think that at the end of the day we are going to need a coalition build.
But what do you mean by that? Like coalition build, like I can see where both sides are like valuable, because like I said, like if you're getting a coalition build, like a liberal isn't going to, like a typical liberal voter, like a freaking Brooklynite or something like that, isn't going to vote for a Republican just because some jackass like Jimmy Dore said that AOC is like a corrupt bimbo or something. He obviously didn't say that, but like I think Dore appeals to a certain sect of Democratic voters or left-leaning voters, whereas you have people who are like kind of like you have people who are more like the Pac-Mans and stuff like that, who appeal to more like liberal voters, and we kind of intersect those two groups, and they all kind of come together, even though they might have different approaches to politics. They'll still all, of course, want Medicare for all, free college, like legalization of marijuana and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that, and the last thing I'll say on this particular part of the video is, yeah, like, are some criticisms, are they immune to criticism? No. Like, I have my criticisms of every person I just named. I just think that it needs to be phrased in a more productive way, and people have been unfair to him too.
Most definitely. I think there's way too many people who are like, again, too quick to not be as critical about their leaders. Like, there's no one who's on like a pedestal. You always have to constantly keep their feet to the fire and stuff like that. Once you start idolizing them is when they start not giving a shit because you're gonna vote for them and turns into a Pelosi Schumer type situation. Not saying they're anywhere near as corrupt as them, but it takes decades for something to rot out.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. That's all I'll say in terms of the way he talks about other progressives, and I'll probably talk a bit more about it at the end. But
not too harp too much on it. But my one major criticism of him is when it comes to Tucker Carlson and like right-wing media, I think his approach is less effective because those people don't come with the inherent mindset that Trump and the Republican Party are evil. They don't come with the inherent mindset that privatized insurance or privatized medical care is inherently evil. They don't come with the idea that capitalism is inherently evil and stuff like that. So I think when he goes on those channels, he's got to be more aware that I can understand the criticism where he has to be more critical of like the GOP and Trump and stuff like that once he's on those platforms, because those people aren't coming with the idea that like the base knowledge of GOP bad and stuff like that. So I think once he's on Tucker, he can definitely push harder on more GOP talking points and not go hard on Democrats, because they only really want to hear AOC bad and shit. Not really any kind of like logical thinking of, oh well, both parties are pretty terrible, but the GOP is way, way worse and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that this is, I guess a bit more of a major contention I have with him is I don't feel like he goes hard enough on some of these right-wing characters. His appearances, I'm not going to criticize him too much on his Tucker appearances because I think there are appearances he's had on Tucker where it's quite effective. I think that there is a right way and a wrong way to go on Tucker's show, and he's exhibited both ways. I think that when he does talk about these things like implementing single-payer Medicare for all or free college, living wage, he says these things to a crowd of people that either don't believe in this stuff at all, or they don't want you to believe it, and are just an outright hatred of these policies. They just straight up disagree, and I think he has illuminated it on Tucker's show a lot to millions of people that have probably been told all this negative stuff about it, and I think that's good. But at the same time, I think that he goes on there and he downs on like some of these progressive characters pretty badly and doesn't really do a lot to criticize the Republican establishment. He's mostly pushing up some of these progressive policies, but I think he needs to more criticize the Republicans on there. I think there's just more effective ways that he can go on there and use his newfound platform more effectively.
Most definitely. Yeah, that's my biggest criticism of him.
But yeah, another thing, I don't know if this is really a criticism, but this is a criticism of him. And that's the way he kind of approaches like the populist right, the way he discusses the populist right. He's kind of very much similar to I guess like the Crystal and Sagar thing. They talk a lot like the uniting the populist left and the populist right. This is a
giant air quotes.
Yeah, I think that I'll give him some legitimacy to that. I think I agree with Kyle's thing where he's like, there's no populist right politician, but there are populist right people. And I agree. What do you think?
I think it's a far stretch to say that they're genuinely populist. They might have some small ideals. Like I guess I can only base off of Sagar because that's the only major dude I know. But it feels like when you get down to the nitty gritty, they still support like a lot of the issues that are not going to be beneficial to like the people and stuff like that. They're good on some trade issues, of course. They're like with marijuana legalization and stuff like that. But when it comes to like the nitty-gritty of actually addressing why our society is failing and like having actual populism, like having actual policies that benefit people, I don't think they're as good, and they're always caught up in like the identity policies and stuff like that. But that's beyond the point.
Yeah, I think that I may be a bit softer on the idea of a populist right, not with like these online figures even. I'm not even, like, I don't believe there's any populist politicians. I don't really think there's really, or right-wing politicians. I don't really think there's really that many right-wing populist pundits.
No.
But I will say that individuals, and you're right, even populist right individuals, like your average guy from like West Virginia or something, does have their own problematic views that I think that Jimmy Dore probably be a good idea for him and others to illuminate on when they're talking about him.
I think he could definitely reach out to people like that because, it's just bullshit stuff that you've been propagandized to think that's going to destroy your entire future when it has literally no effect on you.
Yeah, I just think that these are people that exist. There's tens of millions of people that you could probably label as populist right, and while there are problematic views, I don't think we should completely demonize these people either. I think that this is a legitimate group of people that can be pulled to the left. It's just a matter of how we address them, how we disagree with them and criticize things we do disagree with them on, how we praise what we agree on, and how we work together to achieve those things we agree on, while at the same time trying to convince them against some of the things that we disagree on, try to convince them that maybe they're thinking a bit wrong, in terms of immigration or some of the culture, race issues or whatever.
Right. I think with Dore, his biggest thing is that he, of course, is left-leaning socially and economically, with right-leaning people who are right-leaning socially, but I guess have more right-leaning or somewhat left-leaning economic policies.
Yeah.
I think they can definitely be convinced to be hey, when it comes down to it, the Republican Party is they don't care about the social issues, genuinely don't, and those economic issues that are affecting you are the ones that are directly going to ruin your communities. West Virginia, the coal owners and stuff like that, it's a whole nother era of Appalachian history and all that jazz that's just been shown that the Republican Party and of course the Democratic Party on not much lesser extent, but on a lesser extent has worked with the owning class to destroy the Appalachian region. Of course, we're just talking about that region, but also just the general South. It's just been an entire collection of right economic people who have fought their entire life to, fatten the pockets of their owning class instead of actually helping the working class people who are the entire reason why they have wealth. So if you just be yeah, sure, abortion, whatever, gay rights, of course, as a left person, you're going to advocate for those policies, but the conversation shouldn't be centered around that because two dudes getting married in San Francisco has no effect on the fact that the average wage in community is $10 an hour or something. Those are things that can actually improve your life instead of getting distracted by the fact that there's trans kids on the baseball team or something like that.
I agree. I think that maybe he could do a bit more to maybe bring up a bit more of the social issues. I think that they are very important as well, and we need a working class coalition of every gender, different colors, races, ethnicities, just everything. We need is broad a coalition. It's just very base level respect. You ain't gotta, do whatever, but a base level respect for everybody, and then you can build off of that. But once everyone, I believe, if we've got the minimum wage to at least a very minimum 15, which needs to be higher, you are more likely, I feel to convince people to actually analyze why their life is shit and realize that all the people who have been pushing, rah guns, that's a whole other thing, but who are pushing all the allegedly socially conservative ideas have been setting them up to be continuous failures and setting up to continue the cycle of generational poverty and such that has been affecting communities. But yeah, social issues are important. Of course, I'm not gonna stand side by side with someone who's killed transport or some shit like that, but I will fight for their right to have their kids go to school, have a free education, and advance their community in any way possible. Yeah, and I think that Jimmy Dore would agree on these issues. I've seen him again on his latest Joe Rogan show. They had a debate about police reform in this country and how much funding should go toward the police. And he did a good job actually defending the defund the police movement. I think he'd agree on a lot of these issues. He does agree with gay marriage and trans rights. I just think that he might be a good idea when he does talk about these right-wingers and talk to them to kind of bring that up and harp on that, be hey, yeah, we can agree on these things, but also I think that here's why I disagree, and here's why I think that these people are not hurting you, they're not a danger to you. And again, he would agree. I just think that it's not a big focus on his channel, and I think that if he can dissuade at least some of the critics by making it, I guess, a bigger thing, because it is one of the big criticisms that he gets.
No, I totally understand that. I think everyone has a role to play, and I got completely sidetracked earlier like that. I think everyone has a role to play when it comes to the online left, in which I guess, prong you venture out into and stuff. But I think he definitely can harp more on social issues. It's not necessarily a detriment, obviously. If someone's watching you and they agree with your left politics, but they don't think that those social issues like Black Lives Matter is a effective committee or group for change, then of course he can. I think he'd do a lot better to convince those people to follow him on the social aspects than someone who's more socially centered to convince people to follow them on the economic aspects, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I think that, yeah, they already have a good amount of trust in him, and I think he's done a good job of building kind of a populist right base, and I think that he now has a big enough platform of them to kind of be like, hey, like, I am quite left on social issues as well. Here's why I think that you should be, or let me convince you, at least try my best to do so. And again, it's just, I understand it's like a slight criticism for me. I'm not shitting on him too bad for it.
Right, it really ain't a big deal either way, you know.
Well, I think it can be, but it's not like a big deal in that like I'm super mad at him and think he's like a shitty person. But
you're right.
I think that it could do wonders, especially with him having a big platform, going on these Tucker shows, and he has built up more legitimacy over there to actually start talking about these issues and kind of maybe just retool the way he goes on there sometimes. Like, I'm not just gonna hate him for going on Tucker Carlson. I think that any leftist, because Tucker Carlson's bigger than any person on the online left, let's just be real, and having a chance to go on that platform would do wonders and talk to some of these other right-wing figures. I just think that maybe there's a better way he could do it. I think that he could do a better job of criticizing the right when he goes on there. Maybe be respectful about it so he can go back on there. But there's better ways he could talk about this stuff. But I think ultimately, like, it's not like, I don't think he's a bad person in the way he talks about that stuff. But yeah, it's just my criticism in that regard.
All right, moving on from that, let's see, we're going to talk about his strategy and stuff like that.
Yeah, like a big criticism he gets is kind of his brand of leftist strategy. The big things we're going to talk about are force the vote, like his opinion on force the vote, whether we agree or disagree with that. The vote blue no matter who, same thing. And he's more of and that's going to tie into like him voting third party, like him, should we vote third party? He's kind of a big proponent like the People's Party and things of that nature. But yeah, force the vote. If for y'all who don't know what force the vote is, it's pretty much the idea of withholding your votes for, at the time, Nancy Pelosi to get a vote on Medicare for all. And a lot of people, I mean, yeah, this issue's kind of done and over. I mean, she was reelected or whatever, but for future reference too, I think in the future, this is a strategy that'll probably be brought up again.
Okay, yeah, that whole saga was something to behold, because I think it was very unfair towards Dore personally. I guess I'm more on his side in terms of that, because I feel like there was a lot of people who made bad faith attacks on him, saying that he was just like, I guess, like undemocratic, or he was being like I don't know, fascist adjacent or whatever they said about him. I guess it probably was a fruitless effort either way, because they're not gonna. We recently had the vote on having a $15 minimum wage, and we have like 6 senators or something like that vote against increasing minimum wage because they didn't want it in the bill or something like that. So I think it wouldn't. I don't know if it would push the public to have any sort of outcry against the probably 45 Democratic senators who would have voted against. Or I guess it was in the House, my bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just be too much of a majority of them would vote against Medicare for all and making it look weak. So I think one of the major criticism where it was just like, oh, it's kind of wasting time because it just make us look bad by like losing a massive vote. And I kind of agree with that. I agree with Dore in the sense that we definitely should push people, but I can see why it's just like, what's the point of doing if you know you're gonna get fucking blown out and stuff?
Yeah, I think that I think I do. I was on the fence about force the vote for a while. Like that kind of strategy of leveraging your progressive congressional people or senators or what have you to kind of withhold certain votes if you don't get X, Y, or Z on the table. Mm-hmm. But no, I think I do support it now. I think that in terms of force the vote, we could have gotten more bang for our buck, not just get like a vote, but actually maybe get a few policy concessions in like the Democratic platform. Mm-hmm. like more things be added on to the Democratic platform, maybe more progressive
actual, party platform.
Yeah, and I think that we could have maybe got a bit more bang for a buck on that, but I do agree in principle with the force to vote. I think that I just agree with it. I'm not going to go too into it now. Maybe we'll go into it more at a later date. But yeah, no, I just don't think that this is just a policy disagreement. I don't really see whether you agree with it or disagree. There's good arguments on both sides in this regard. I don't really see it as a reason to kind of cancel the guy out or hate the guy. Same with this strategy of whether you vote blue no matter who for president. What do you think of that?
I deeply regret voting for Joe Biden. So anyone who, honestly, who you vote for is a very private matter. If you make it public like I did, that's on you. If you keep it to yourself, that's also, that's your right as a citizen of this country. Vote blue no matter who. I think even on a local level, there's so much corruption on the local level too. There's no part of politics that's squeaky clean, like just a couple of good folks out there just trying to help the working class and stuff. As far as in terms of Dore's approach, where I think he's relatively, I don't know if he's necessarily all gung-ho on that. I definitely think supporters of vote blue no matter who are a bit condescending and forceful. If you don't want to vote for a dog shit Democrat, that's on you. If you do want to vote for him because you want to just have any blue person in Congress to bolster their numbers, I understand that strategy, but I just can't unanimously give my vote to someone just because they have a D next to their name. I think that's Dore's opinion too, for the most part.
Yeah, I think I disagree with you both on that.
Damn.
While I do see, I agreed more with forced to vote, and here's where I disagree. I'm not going to go too into it. I think we can do something separate and actually debate that. But no, I voted for Biden. I stand by my vote for Biden versus Trump. I do think he was by far the lesser of two evil. I'm a conservationist, an environmentalist. It's a big thing to me.
You proud of that vote now if you're a
not proud of it.
Environmentalist?
Not proud of it, but I stand by it. I think that Trump was especially dangerous.
Oh, no, most def.
And I think that it wasn't even super close between the two. Biden's horrible, but I think that he's at least double as, no, I'm not saying double as good, but probably 1.5 times as good as Trump at least.
About 2%.
I don't know, a good amount. And I would be a little more apprehensive on it, voting on the presidential level, but I would definitely vote blue down ticket. I think that I want to make the Republican Party as irrelevant as possible, and then therefore I think it'd make it a lot easier for progressives. But no, I'd mostly vote for Democrats. I'd always vote for the progressive in the primary if there is one, but I'd probably go into it in a later video. But yeah, no, I do disagree with Jimmy Dore on that. I voted for Biden. I voted for Amy McGrath in Kentucky. I voted for Charles Booker in the primary, mind you, but no, it's just at the end of the day, it's a policy disagreement, and I do agree with you that people on the other side of that, on my side of things, were extremely condescending, extremely vicious, and super counterproductive in the way they were talking about telling people to vote for what I agree the lesser of two evils, but the way they talked about it, the way they condescended, made me it was very frustrating to watch.
Every time you brought up the fact that Biden has been behind damn near every awful law over the past 40 years, it's bro, look at his policy website. Where the fuck is legal weed? Where's $15 an hour? Where's getting out of Afghanistan and not having a bunch of private contractors there? But that's another freedom. I got one spicy little question for you. We can talk about it later. But would you vote for him again?
Would I vote for Biden again?
If Biden were to run in 2024.
Depends on who he ran against.
Let's say if he ran against Trump.
I would vote for him again. No, I would.
What if he ran against, what if DeSantis had the nomination?
Probably that too. I think it would have to be if he ran against Rand Paul, I would just withhold my vote at that point or vote third party. But just the most
There's no way Rand Paul is not worse than DeSantis.
I don't know.
Rand Paul is, man, I hate that man. Kentucky politicians just suck ass.
Yeah, because it sucks voting in Kentucky. But yeah, no, I will say though that I respect Jimmy Dore's decision and a lot of people on that side.
Yeah, anyone. It's your vote is your choice, most definitely.
Yeah, I believe in your freedom. I'm not going to condescend to you. I believe in the true democracy, you have the right to have your votes people earn your votes.
Right, and who you vote for is who you vote for. I don't believe in the whole, if you vote for X, Y, and Z, you're actually voting for A, B, and C. I don't believe that at all.
That's fine. It's a disagreement. Same thing with Jimmy Dore's. This is the last thing we'll mention, is his support for, I guess, voting. It kind of ties into it. His support for voting third party over voting third party in all these elections. I think I disagree with that too. I want to make it easier for third parties to get stuff. I think that there should be more parties to go out there and be actually relevant and be in the debates and stuff. But I just don't really think they really have much of a chance of winning outside of city hall councils or very local positions. But if you get big, if we ever get big enough on this channel, I would totally shout out third party candidates if you want to vote for them. I think these people do need more attention, and they are an alternative if you want to protest vote. But I think really all it is at the moment is a protest vote.
All right, I think there's definitely has to be a tipping point moment where for third party votes, candidates to actually have any chance of actually making it big or having big political offices. You have to eventually, you can't continue to vote, at least in my eyes, you can't continue to vote for Democrats if you want a third party to persist, because the very act of voting for Democrats is going to be not necessarily counterproductive to having a major third party rule. But I can see, if you vote third party, if you're in a solidly blue area, we're in a solidly red state for the most part. Actually, we're a purplish red, but red state nonetheless. Gonna vote third party if I like the candidate. Gonna vote Democrat if I like the candidate, because the Republicans gonna win anyway, so you might as well throw a couple votes their way and such.
Yeah, I can see that. I'll probably catch shit for it, but yeah, I would vote. I'm gonna keep voting for the Democrats for now.
For Demisha 24 and 24, bro.
Probably, just for now. But I will make an effort as our channel, if we're lucky enough to grow. I will make an effort to shout out third-party candidates
if they're worth it.
If they're worth it, if they're people we agree with, they're progressives, and I think that everyone should know and have the option to vote for these people and know of them. But no, it's just a thing I disagree with on Jimmy Dore. We might go further into it at another time, but that's all we're going to talk about today on him. At the end of the day, is he co-opt or comrade? I think he's a comrade.
Yes.
I have criticisms of him. We didn't get into everything. There's a lot of things you can go about on it, but he's done some things that I really probably disagree with. But no, I think that he is a strong voice for the left in many ways. There's just some things in his rhetoric that maybe he could do more responsibly, be more careful in his rhetoric sometimes. But I think that he does fight for the right things most of the time. It's how he fights for it sometimes they may have issues with, but I think he's a comrade. I think he's a good guy. And I really just think that the left needs to stop just going at each other like this. Whether you're part of, whether you agree more with a David Pakman or a Jimmy Dore or Sam Cedar or a Nico House or whoever you follow, we just need to be more healthy in this discourse, and that's all I'll say. What do you say?
Yeah, I think most definitely. Of course, I have a personal bias towards him, but I think he is sometimes a little loose with his rhetoric, I guess. I support the basic ideas, but he needs to learn how to tailor his message to certain audiences. If you're on a Tucker Carlson, just be aware that the people you're talking to don't necessarily have the same basis for ideology that you do. I think he is aware of that, but he doesn't necessarily harp on it because he's just trying to bang, bang, boom, get his left ideals out there. But overall, I think every member of the online left has their own major blind spots that they need to work on. I think Dore is just another, I guess, avenue of coalition building, and for what I think, he's reaching an audience of the left that might be neglected by other creators and speakers and such. But I think that's pretty much all we have to say on Dore. We're glad to be back on the old YouTube, making more videos and stuff. We'll try to be a lot more consistent with it, and unless you got anything else to say, we'll sign off for now. See y'all in the next one.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you for watching. If you like it, leave a like. If you don't like it, leave a dislike. And cuss us out,
Just call me dumb and ugly, and we'll see y'all.
Yeah, but y'all have a great day, though. Love you guys. Have a great day, and peace.